The Brothers Karamazov, Book 7, Chapter 3. The first 2 pages of Chapter 3 give us the backstory, the history of the character Grushenka. Giving this backstory or history seems absolutely necessary, as we've only have a flat or one-dimensional negative portrayal of Grushenka thus far. On the one hand, we've seen the effect she's had on Dmitri and Fyodor, and of course she's not responsible for all of Fyodor and Dmitri's behavior toward her, all of the lust and the rage and the jealousy that they are both driven by. She's not responsible for, but it doesn't seem like she's helpful at all really in that matter, so not the best look for her in that regard. But on the other hand, we've seen her up close and personal one time where she, in front of Alyosha, treated old Katerina Ivanova very, very poorly. So we've only seen her in the most negative of lights, and when she is mentioned by a few other characters, be it Rakitin or anyone else, no one is praising her. So it's necessary that we understand her backstory, what she's doing in our town, why she's been there, and it seems like as a teenage girl, she was engaged and trapped in this town with a little bit of an allowance, with an abandoned fiance almost, and so it's really quite a surprise. We see her as, we maybe would have assumed her as this seductress, this woman who is overly confident and manipulative because of her sexuality and her seductive ways. But once we understand her history in this chapter, we see her not really coming from that motivation so much as she's insecure, she's scared. She is using her sexuality to get some stability in her world. She's also using her brain to work wonders financially, which is why she met Fyodor the first time in a business venture, kind of going in as loan sharks, buying people's debt up, and then when you buy someone's debt up, then you can charge them an obscene interest. And so through her sexuality, but not her sexuality alone, also her cunning business deal, she has sort of gone from a socioeconomic or a social position of vulnerability, and through her cunning and craftiness, both romantically and financially, she's worked herself from really a vulnerable child into a somewhat independent woman. And so we understand that about her, that she's not just playing all these men off of each other, manipulating them as some sort of immature game or some sort of evil motives. She is like she is, not for sport, but out of necessity. In other words, we see how, like most people, there is an aspect of her life that she's not just a victimizer, that she herself is a victim. Now enter Rakitin and Alyosha. Alyosha is there, and he has sausage and vodka in his tummy, and make no mistake about it, he is at Grushenka's not for the best reasons. He is angry at God for Zosima's stinking corpse. Rakitin, like the religious leaders of Jesus's day, having a pure person like Zosima and having a pure person like Alyosha only around them, only makes them feel condemned. The holier the person around you is, the more acutely aware you are of your flaws. And so he's absolutely delighted that Zosima's corpse stink, and he's delighted that the stinking corpse of Zosima is also causing Alyosha to lose his faith as well. And so Rakitin is absolutely jubilant, because now he doesn't have to feel so unclean himself. Now he can witness with his own eyes and even be the instrument somewhat of the downfall also of Alyosha. So if you're keeping statistics here, so both Alyosha and Rakuten have base ill, less than pure motives for going to see Grushenka. But it's revealed not long after the three are in the room together that Grushenka also doesn't have pure motives, that she has actually paid Rakuten to bring Alyosha to defile him. And so everyone is using the other person, and Grushenka and Rakuten have the same motives. They're both trying to bring Alyosha down rather than they go up spiritually. And so rather than try to become pure or try to ascend spiritually, it's much easier to pull Alyosha down to their level. And so that is where the chapter seems to be going. Then all of a sudden, as she is playfully and kitten-like sitting on Alyosha's knee, teasing, it doesn't seem very seductive. It seems more like teasing and playing. No sooner does Rakuten mention the death of Zosima that something instantly changes in Grushenka. She crosses herself sincerely and devoutly, jumps off the knee of Alyosha, and begins to rebuke herself for her foolish behavior. And so we see that she's not this flat, one-dimensional temptress or seductress of a character, that she actually has a conscience, and she cares deeply that this man has died, and not only has died, but that his corpse stinks. And she not only cares about Zosima, but she cares that Alyosha cares about Zosima, and so that there is a tenderness and a compassion there. Now, Alyosha, remember, from much earlier in the book, because he is honest with himself, he's able to be someone who loves, and he has an active love, and having an honesty with yourself and an ability to love and move out in the world also gives you the ability to understand people, perhaps that surpasses even your age. A wisdom that transcends age. And so Alyosha, just seeing that tender, compassionate reaction from Grushenka, he immediately knows that he's misread her, that she's more than he bargained for on the spiritual side, that she's not just a seductress, that she has a soul, that she has a conscience, that she is a kind person. Now, he begins to extol her for this, and Rakuten, who is the exact opposite of Alyosha, knows nothing about the human heart because he has walls up, because he's not honest with himself, and so he is naive, and he doesn't understand why Alyosha would appreciate Grushenka's compassion, because he has no compassion, he has delight that Zosima has died and that his corpse stinks. So he can't read the situation even when it's unfolding in front of him, but Alyosha can read an entire character just by one little glint of the eye of compassion from Grushenka. And so Grushenka rebukes herself, talks about what a dirty, sinful woman she is, gives some of her backstory, tells Alyosha why she is the way that she was, all the ill motives. She gives this little parable from a peasant lady had told to Dostoevsky about an onion, and there's some pretty obvious symbolism there. The one good deed that can keep you out of hell. And Alyosha starts to understand that not only is Grushenka not one-dimensional, but she actually is a very loving, very capable person. You see that Katerina was trying to manipulate her, and so the thing that seems so cold-hearted from one perspective originally, now that you see the whole picture, wasn't actually as evil and as maniacal as it had seemed when we first read the chapter. Now we understand that Grushenka was only reacting to Katerina using her. And then she tells the story about this officer who has mistreated her all these years, and now she's sort of this self-made woman, and now he's calling her back, and she's considering and you can tell by what she's wearing that she's ready to flee. She's ready to go back to him, not because she's a weak woman, or not because she has no other options, but rather because she can forgive. It's not that she's going back to him out of weakness, rather she's going back to him out of strength, or at least considering going back to him out of strength. And Alyosha sees that. He sees what a marvelous act that is, and he mentions how much he respects that shining character that she has, and he says that that Grushenka is more moral, or has a better character than he has, because he would seek revenge if someone mistreated him, as this officer Samsonov has mistreated her. And so in that sense, Grushenka is a superior person. And so Grushenka appreciates so much Alyosha being the very thing that she's lacked her whole life, which is a man who sees her and doesn't see her primarily as a sexual conquest, does not see her as an object of romantic desire. Alyosha is finally a man who looks at her and sees character first, and sees a character that is admirable. And so both the compassion over the loss of Zosima, going from Grushenka to Alyosha, and the commendation of character going from Alyosha to Grushenka mean that Grushenka and Alyosha have mutually encouraged each other. Now Rakitin is literally sitting in the corner like a Judas Iscariot, and he wants to puke at the tenderness of this moment, and he can't wait to get them to go. And so finally it's time for them to go, because the monastery evidently closes its gates. And so Rakitin and Alyosha are leaving the courtyard, and Grushenka screams out the window to tell your brother Alyosha, tell Dmitri that I did love him. It was only for a day, but that day it was genuine. I really did love him, and so hold on to that. And I don't want to do spoilers, but there's an importance, I think, there going forward, that her love was real, even if it was for a short time. It was real, and to let that be the treasure for a lifetime. So she screams that out. And then as they're leaving her house, Rakitin's not done making fun of Alyosha, and so he brings up these biblical parallels and saying, Alyosha, you're no Christ. I'm no Judas. I don't have 30 pieces of silver. I have 25 rubles or whatever. And he says, and you've made her a real Mary Magdalene. You've cast out 7 demons from her. And now she's a moral woman because of the miracle that your forgiveness has wrought in her life. And so Rakitin is saying that in a mocking way, but I think the narrator is saying in kind of a wink-wink fashion, no, in sort of an ironic way, sort of an out-of-the-mouth-of-babes kind of way, even though it's said by Rakitin sarcastically, kind of like a Roman soldier putting up King of the Jews over the cross of Christ. There's some heavy irony, because I think that's exactly what has happened. So Alyosha's faith in the previous chapter was completely shook. The arguments from his brother Ivan in the 5th book, and now the death of Zosima and his stinking corpse here in the 7th book, have Alyosha's faith completely shook. But what has restored his faith? What has redeemed him? Love. And what kind of love? Active love. Grushenka is able to look at a man who mistreated her 5 years ago and forgive him, and be compassionate to him and accept him again. And what can she do to Alyosha? Well, she can see that he came to her with ill motives, and she forgives him for that. And so seeing that a woman like Grushenka is capable of redemptive love, reminds him that the scenarios that Ivan sets up aren't exactly true to life, that love can conquer injustice, that the whole story of the world aren't children being abused and mistreated. The entire story of the world are not miscarriages of justice like Zosima's stinking corpse. No, there are miracles, and the miracles don't have to do with bones of saints or handkerchiefs or sort of medieval superstition. The real miracles are people supernaturally forgiving other people, people doing charitable and loving things that there is no sort of rational accounting for. Rather, it's humble people like Grushenka forgiving people in hard places, not demanding justice, but instead being merciful, that's really the source of miracles. And so Alyosha remembers what it is that he believes. He remembers the teachings of Zosima, that active love can overcome any rational argument, that active love can transcend all sorts of understanding. And seeing that embodied in Grushenka is the miracle that Rakuten is making fun of. Well, it's actually played out. And so now Alyosha heads back to the monastery. Perhaps he'll lay his head down and have a dream when he gets there. But Alyosha is headed back to the monastery now alone, with his soul greatly encouraged because he's back on track. He remembers what the real miracle is in this world and in life, and that is active love. And who taught it? Not Zosima, but Grushenka. You see, we had her all wrong. Well, maybe we didn't have her all wrong, but we had her somewhat wrong. We judged her, and now that we've heard her story, we realize that through the connectedness of all people, there are reasons for the way that people are. And of course, it doesn't justify everything that Grushenka has ever done, but it does set it in a context where we are much more merciful to her and able to see all the good that she is.